can you please confirm that you can hear the English channel?
Sí, okay.
Okay.
So, great. So now for those listening in Spanish, just wanting to confirm that those who are listening in Spanish can also hear. I can't see everyone on the screen, but I'm on the Spanish channel, so I think we are good on that front. So I just want to thank everyone for, and thank you, Lucy, for confirming also on the Spanish channel. But I want to thank everyone for supporting us in the creation of this multilingual space. And I also want to thank the interpreters, Amber and Anissa, who are interpreting into ASL, and then Alexia and Leah, who are interpreting between Spanish and English. So with that, I will go ahead and move us along. Um, okay. I was just checking the chat to see if there was anything else. And yes, and we're going to, just a reminder again to stay on mute because it also makes it difficult for everyone to hear each other and for the interpreters to hear what's being said. Okay, so now I'll also help mute if needed. Okay, let me. Okay. So my name is Betty Marin, and I am an associate program director with the Alliance for California Traditional Arts, and want to welcome you to our 2026 funding opportunities session to share a little bit about what we'll do today in the next hour and a half or so. We're going to share about our Living Cultures program and how to apply and have time to answer your questions. And then we're going to hear about our apprenticeship program, also how to apply and then answer your questions. And so we're going to go into a lot of details about the guidelines. If we have time, we'll also look at the actual application on Submittable. And yeah, it will be an opportunity for you to just learn about both programs and prepare to apply. And yes, Aaliyah is sharing in the chat that the recording will be linked on ACTA's website program pages. So look out for that at some point next week. Before we get into all those details, we just want to thank our funders. The Living Cultures Grant is supported by the California Arts Council and also the Hewlett Foundation, and the apprenticeship program is supported by National Endowment for the Arts, the Maxwell Hanrahan Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, and I think also the Hewlett Foundation. So we're grateful to our funders for supporting both of these programs. And actually also we get support from the LA County Department of Arts and Culture. And also just to mention, I forgot to mention this at the top, I am based in Los Angeles, which is unceded Tongva land. So just wanting to also honor and recognize the indigenous lands that we all live on. So for those of you who are new to us, y voy a cambiar al español en esta parte. Para las personas que son nuevas
I'm going
al,
to
a
switch
lo
to
que vienen
Spanish
siendo pues
now.
las
So for
artes
those of you who
tradicionales
are
de
new
California,
to
vamos
us,
a
to Alliance for
compartir
California
brevemente.
Traditional
Somos una
Arts, I'm going to
organización sin
share
fines
briefly
de
that we
lucro
are a
que se
nonprofit
estableció en
organization that was
1947.
established in
Y nuestra misión
1997.
como
And our
organización es
mission as an
promover y
organization
apoyar
is
maneras
to
para que
promote
las
and
tradiciones
support
culturales
ways for
puedan florecer
cultural
ahora y en el
traditions to
futuro.
thrive now and in the future.
Proveemos lo que es
We provide
recursos, apoyo,
resources,
abogacía,
support,
conexiones para
advocacy,
sus
and
tradicionales y
connections
sus
for
comunidades.
California
Entonces,
traditional
estos
artists
dos
and their
programas que
communities.
vamos a
And so
presentar
these are
hoy
the
son
programs
dos
that we're going
ejemplos
to
de
present today,
recursos
which are examples of
que
resources
proveemos para
that
artistas y
we provide
organizaciones
for
independientes
artists
que
and
están
communities
enfocadas en lo que
and
son las artes
organizations
tradicionales
that are
aquí en
focused on
California.
traditional arts in California.
Y aquí en la foto es la
Here in the
mujeres
photo,
triqui de la
we
comunidad
have
San Martín
Triqui
en
women
Tuloso,
from
Madera,
the community
y
San
ellas
Martín
recibieron la beca
Ingenioso
en
in Madera, California. They got the
2024
grant in
para un festival
2024
tradicional en
for a
Madera,
traditional
enfocado
festival
en
in
la
Madera,
danza y la
California,
música triqui.
which was focused on music and on Triqui music and dance.
And Ali, if you could help Hannah, who's putting a note in the chat. I think they're having some issues. Estas oportunidades de financiación,
These
nuestro trabajo como
funding
asociación se
opportunities
enfoca en lo que son las
are
artes
focused on
tradicionales. Entonces
traditional
queremos también
arts.
empezar
So we also
cómo
want to start
definimos lo
with
que son
how
las
we
artes
define
tradicionales.
what
Entonces
traditional
nosotros
arts are.
vemos a esas artes
So we
tradicionales que son
see
artes
these
que
traditional
se
arts
practican
as
y se
arts that are
aprenden dentro de una
practiced and
comunidad
learned
cultural
in a
que
cultural
tiene una
community
herencia
that
de
has
lenguaje, religión,
some common
trabajo y acción
heritage,
compartida.
language, religion,
También las
occupation,
artes
a
tradicionales
region,
muchas
some
veces se
shared
enfocan en lo que es
aspect.
como una
Many times
sabiduría
they
compartida y
also focus
colectiva,
on
no
collective
solo la
wisdom
visión de un artista
and a shared
individual.
wisdom, not just
Y
the
también
vision of
incluyen lo
one
que es una
single individual
comprensión
artist.
compartida de la
And
belleza
they
y
also
del
have
gozo.
a shared understanding of beauty.
Es sabiduría, un
It's a
entendimiento,
wisdom and understanding.
un aprendizaje que
It's
muchas
a
veces se hace en
learning
comunidad,
that many times is
colectivamente,
done in the community and
y creemos
collectively.
que realmente afirma lo que es la identidad de
And
esas
it
comunidades
also
culturales. Esos
confirms the
son unos
identity of these
elementos
cultural
que para
communities.
nosotros
So these are the
definen lo que
elements
son
that
las
for
artes
us
tradicionales.
define
Y
what
también cuando
traditional arts
entremos
are.
a lo que son
And
los criterios,
we also are
con las
looking
reglas
at the criteria,
de la
the
beca y el
rules
programa de aprendices.
for the
También vamos a hablar un poco
Living
más
Arts grant
de cómo
and for the
definimos las artes
apprenticeship
y
grant. And we'll
lo que estamos
also
buscando
define what
en
those
las
are and what we are
solicitudes
looking
para estos
for
programas.
in the applications for those programs.
Voy a estar checando también
I'm going to
el
be
chat por si
checking
hay
the
problemas,
chat
pero
to
también
see
hay
if there are
días en
any
que podemos
problems. And Aaliyah,
ayudar
if you can
con
also
eso.
help with that.
Ok, ok. Estamos teniendo, viendo que ocupa, oh,
Okay, I see
ok.
that.
Mm. So anyone who hasn't joined their language, under more, under interpretation, you'll have to select your language preference, either English or Spanish. Yes, the selection looks like a circle with 3 dots. Thank you, Woodson.
Y voy a poner una nota en el chat con esas
I'm
instrucciones
also going to
también.
put a note in the chat with these
Gracias
instructions.
por su paciencia y de nuevo por apoyar
Thank you
el
for your
espacio.
patience and also thank you for your support of this multilingual space.
Okay. Okay.
Betty, you'll have to remake me a host so I can continue letting people in. They're coming
I
in.
believe I already. Oh no, I didn't. Let me try again.
Okay.
It's not working, Aaliyah. I keep selecting make host, so I'll just have to have the participant window open. Okay. Vamos a seguir. Entonces, la beca Culturas Vivas es
We're
una
going
beca
to
para
continue with
proyectos
the Living
y
Cultures grant. It is
es una beca para artistas individuales
a project grant. We
de
have individual
7,500
grants.
y
They're
una beca
given
para organizaciones
7,500
de
and we have a
10,000.
grant for organizations which is 10,000.
Las metas de esta beca son ayudar a las
The
comunidades
goals of this
que incluye
grant
artistas
is to
individuales
support
a
communities to
continuar,
carry forward,
fortalecer y compartir sus
strengthen, and
tradiciones
share
por
their
medio
traditions.
de las becas
From
gracias a
these
artistas individuales,
grants
portadores de
to
la cultura
California-based
y
individual
organizaciones sin
artists
fines de lucro
cultural bearers and nonprofits and tribal nations, as well as other organizations.
Ya está abierta la beca, se abrió
The
hace
application is
esta
open.
semana
It opened
y la
on March
abrimos
3rd this week,
por 8 semanas,
and it'll be
más o
open
menos
for
12
8
meses.
weeks, about
Y
2
pueden
months,
solicitar dentro de
and
esas
you
dos,
can
esos
apply
meses y se
during
va
this open
el
period, these 2 months,
27
and
de
it will
abril.
close on April 27th.
Los fondos de la beca o el dinero de la beca se puede
The grant
usar
money can be
entre
used
el 1 de septiembre
between September
hasta el
1st
31
and
de
through
agosto del
August 31st of
2027.
2027.
Entonces, si reciben la beca,
So if you are
tienen 12
granted the
meses
award,
para
you
realizar
have
su
12
proyecto.
months
Y
to
pueden
carry
usar
out your
los 12
project.
meses,
And
pueden
you can
usar
use the
5 de esos meses,
12 months. You
depende
can use
del
5
proyecto,
or
de lo que
7 of those
quieren
months
hacer y el tiempo
and
que necesitan para
for,
hacerlo. Pero tienen esos 12 meses para
but you have
completarlo.
you have those 12 months to complete the project.
Y veo una pregunta.
I see a question.
Y sí, vamos a tratar si veo las preguntas, las voy a contestar
So
y vamos a
if I
tener
see a
tiempo
question, I will answer it, and we'll also
de
have
hacer las
time
preguntas
for
al final,
questions
pero
at
sí
the
vi una
end.
pregunta de cuántas aplicaciones se
But I
van a
do
aprobar.
see the question of how many
Y ahorita
applications will be
tenemos
approved.
que se van a aprobar
Right
entre unos
now, we
70
are
80
expecting between
aplicaciones. Y
70
eso
to
va a tener
80
que ver
applications to
con
be
el
approved.
número de
And
artistas
it will also
individuales
have to do with how
y el
many
número de
individual
organizaciones
artists
que
and
se
how many
aprueben, porque las cantidades
organizations
de la beca,
are
como ven,
applying,
son
because as you
diferentes,
see,
entonces
they are
es
different
un estimado ahorita
quantities.
que tenemos.
So it's an estimate that we have right now.
Entonces vamos a entrar un poco a quién es
So
elegible
now we'll
o
talk
quién
a little bit
puede
about who
solicitar
is
esta beca.
eligible, who can
Para
apply.
artistas
For
individuales,
individual
portadores de la
artists and
cultura,
cultural bearers,
tienen que vivir en
you need
California.
to live in California.
Tienen que también ser un
You need
artista que ha estado
to
practicando
have been
su arte
practicing
por
your
lo menos
tradition
5
for at
años.
least 5
Entonces no
years.
es necesariamente para
So
alguien que
it's not
apenas está
necessarily
entrando o apenas
for
está
people who
aprendiendo
are
un
just
nuevo
starting to
arte.
learn or just starting
Es
to learn a
alguien
new
que ya
art.
tiene una base,
We
una
do want
fundación
somebody to
en el
have
arte.
a
Y también
foundation in
esta
it and a
persona
base of
tiene que
experience.
tener por lo
And this
menos
applicant also
18
needs to
años
be
o
18
más.
years or older.
Y también tienen que poder
They also
recibir
need to be
esos
able to
ingresos
receive
que van a ser
California
sujetos a impuestos
taxable
en
income.
California.
That money will be
En
subject to
este caso,
taxes.
las
And in this case,
personas o artistas individuales no
individual
se
artists
solicitan con lo que
cannot
son
apply with
patrocinadores
fiscal
fiscales.
sponsors.
Esos son para
These
organizaciones
are
que
for
no tienen el estatus
organizations who do not
sin fines
have
de lucro. Y voy a hablar
nonprofit
de eso un
status.
poco más,
I will talk about
más
that in a little
adelante.
bit.
I'm going to switch to English. Para organizaciones y naciones tribales que quieren solicitar.
For
Oh, I thought that I had
Here.
to switch to English and I switched to Spanish. My brain. So as I was saying, for organizations and tribal nations, also these organizations must be based in California. All organizations or the cultural programs of the tribal nations must be they must have a budget that's under 500,000 a year. And actually, I'm going to correct this slide. We ask that you basically give us your average income for your organization over 3 years. To have like a sense of your budget and that it's under 500,000 because we understand that lots of organizations their budgets shift and change year by year. So it's about giving you an average. Here it's saying 3 years of programming, but what we're really looking for is the average of your budget over the 3 years. And if you don't have that 3-year history, you can give us what you do have, whether it's 2 or 1. So I will correct that, and that's actually clearly reflected on the website too, but this slide could be more clear. For folks who let's see. Okay. Yeah, if you still can't hear us, please let us know. But if you've selected your language and on the interpretation option, you should be able to hear in the language that you've chosen. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll keep monitoring and let us know if you still have questions. Um,
There's some questions about from
I'm not muted. I think, Tracy, can you hear us or hear me? Okay, we're gonna keep going. Yes, and I saw there's a question about how do we verify the budget history? Basically, we just ask you to report to us. We kind of give you instructions about what the average income is over the 3 years, and you give us that. You report to us what that amount is, and we go by what information you're giving us. So for if you're a nonprofit that has that income under 500,000, you are eligible to apply. If you're not a nonprofit and you're a community group, you can apply with a nonprofit fiscal sponsor. And like I said, in a minute, I'm going to kind of share a little bit more about what a fiscal sponsor is for folks who may be unfamiliar. You can also apply through your tribal nation, and in that case, that budget limit applies to the cultural program or the cultural department. This could be a tribal nation with federal status or a tribal nation without federal status. If it is a tribal nation without federal status, then you can apply also with a fiscal sponsor or with your own, nonprofit if that's the structure that you have. I'm gonna keep going, and if I have missed questions in the chat, Aaliyah will help gather those at the end, and we will answer them. So um, for folks who need to or work with a fiscal sponsor, a fiscal sponsor it's an official nonprofit organization with that 501(c)(3) status that agrees to receive and manage the grant money for your organization. So they handle the paperwork, they report the money to the government, to the IRS, for a small fee. That fee ranges, and it really depends on the agreement that you make with the fiscal sponsor. What I've been familiar with is that fee usually ranges somewhere in the 10 to 15% range. But again, it really just depends on who you're working with and that agreement. Other things that will play into the fee and the arrangement overall that you want to consider is how much support do you want from the fiscal sponsor organization in terms of managing your project? Is it simply receiving the money and then distributing that money to you for a fee? Are they also helping you manage the project in some way? Are they helping you report on the project? Those are the kinds of questions that you want to ask and come to an agreement around with your fiscal sponsor. We also recommend that you choose a nonprofit who has similar goals to your project or to your organization. We find that helps in terms of just being able to build that relationship and have something that's productive and fruitful based on those shared goals. And in terms of your fiscal sponsor's budget, their budget can actually go above the 500,000. So the fiscal sponsor's budget is there's no budget limitation around that. It's the organization that is applying. That's where the budget requirement exists. Um, so let's get into what can you use this grant for? What can the monies go towards? So we basically think about three kind of big categories. And these examples that we provide are just examples. So we really, support you and you figuring out what is the, what can this grant do for me as an individual artist or for my organization at this time. And these kind of big themes that we're looking at are helping traditions continue and stay strong through learning and practice. That's a big category that we've supported a lot. So some examples of that are, and these are actually recent grantees. Mwisi Congo Malonga actually led 10 monthly Congolese dance workshops for children of African descent in Alameda County. And we had an organization, Fandango Fronterizo, who led a 4-month program for Mexican and Chicano youth in San Diego County to become leaders in a local intergenerational son jarocho community, which is a type of music from southern Mexico. So those are examples of projects that are focused on helping traditions continue through learning and practice. And this is just a photo that was shared by Muisi of the work she did and the children who participated in her workshops. Another category that we think about is, what are the tools, the materials, the supports that you need to also continue and keep your tradition alive? So those might be more related to, getting somebody to help you do your marketing or being able to rent proper, you know, hire a photographer or a videographer to properly document your work. And then the examples of grantees that we had recently, an individual artist, Homayun Saki, created recordings of multi-ethnic Afghan traditional music in collaboration with scholars in the San Joaquin County. So he chose to work with other kind of experts and people who are knowledgeable in his art form and also focus on the documentation of his art form through recordings, through professional recordings. In terms of an organization, they actually also focused on the creation of posters, digital booklets, videos that were documenting, traditional knowledge related to native medicinal plants, and featured in 7 different languages out in Humboldt County. And this image shows some of the work that the Institute for Native Knowledge does with youth, taking them out to a local river to learn about that traditional native plant knowledge. And then the last category that we think about is this idea of sharing your traditions through public presentations, through festivals, through different types of performances. And some of the examples of recent grantees are Indigenous Maui cultural practitioner Varea Tupana Sam, who led the first all-male Tahitian dance group in a major performance and competition. And so the funding was really going towards the training and teaching, but also being able to share the art form to a broader audience. In terms of an organization, the Manila Town Heritage Foundation created a free pre-colonial Philippine music community of practice. They've created free workshops and classes and also free monthly performances in San Francisco County. So a lot of the work that they were doing was about being able to share their art form with a broader audience through these free monthly performances. So then this is an example of the Manila Town Ancestral Ensemble performing at their at a Paro festival in 2024. Okay, so now getting into the what the grant does not support, what we're not able to cover with the grant funding. We're not able to cover regular school classes, so basically projects that are part of the normal school day at K through 12 schools or colleges. You can, however, use the funding for after-school programs. So it's just not uh, projects that are part of regular instruction during a regular school day or a regular college class. They also, on a related note, cannot cover college credit work. So you can't be somebody who's enrolled in some sort of degree and you're using this project to fulfill a class or get credits for your degree or your requirements at your university. We're not able to cover any travel outside of California. And we know this is a tricky one because we know that lots of people also, travel outside of the US to learn from different master teachers, or just to be able to be immersed in whatever home country their tradition may be coming from, if that's the case. But unfortunately, the funds can only travel within California. Um, we also can support projects where basically the main purpose of the project is to raise money for, let's say, an organization. And so this is referring to, for instance, lots of different nonprofits. They might have like an annual gala or event where the focus is to raise money for the organization. So this grant isn't intended to support those types of projects. However, that doesn't mean that you can't charge for the workshops that you're doing or the events that you're doing. It just can't be that that's the main purpose of your event. Oops. And then the last one is we can only have one applicant per project. So that means, for instance, that two groups can't apply, for instance, to put on the same festival or the same event. So each application has to be supporting a different project. And a couple other things related to what we're able to fund and also related to who can apply. If you're a previous grantee of our Living Cultures grant and you never told us what happened after you received the grant, you never sent in your final report, we're not able to give you a new grant until we have that information. So if you are a past grantee and you're unsure if you sent in your final report, please follow up with me and we can check in on that to make sure that you're eligible. And then lastly, for those of you who receive funding from the California Arts Council or from the Hewlett Foundation, if you currently receive funding, you would just need to apply to this grant for a different project. So not the same project that you're currently receiving funding for. And that's because those funders are basically providing the funds for the money for this grant. And so we want this money to also support other work that's happening in California. Whoops, let me. So I'm gonna go into, let's see. Oh, I see. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna move to questions pretty soon. But just a few more slides talking about the application. So there are 5 parts to the application. Um, the first part of it is just getting your contact information and also background information about you. We ask questions related to for individuals, your racial and ethnic background, and for organizations and individuals, the cultural community that you identify with, the traditional art form that you're practicing, those types of questions. And then the bulk of the application are questions that allow you to describe the work that you're going to accomplish with the grant. So I'm in maybe the next slide, I'm going to share like how do we review these applications? How do we evaluate these applications? And I'm going to go into those key criteria and so those are the things that we're going to be looking for when we ask you to tell us about your project. We're going to ask you, what are you planning to do? who are the key artists? What is the impact that you want to see? Those types of things. So I'll share a little bit more in a minute. And then you're going to provide a budget. So you're going to actually, write down how you're going to use the funding. So, actually break down for us, okay, this amount of money is going to pay, the two key artists that are leading the workshops. This amount of money is going to be, for the purchase of materials. This amount is going to go towards travel. All the different kind of elements that go into creating a project. So you'll be able to list out how you're going to spend the money. And then a really important piece are the work samples. So that's where you get to actually upload photos and videos or audio recordings of your artwork. And we'll actually, I think, um, when we show a little bit more of the application and submittable, I'll also probably, if we have time, go show a little bit more on our website where we break down the different options for work samples. So depending on your art practice, we're going to suggest either photo or video, but there's an option to do both with either with whatever type of art form that you're focusing on, and so you'll be able to decide which types of samples will best represent your art form. You will also have a chance to send in a support letter or video. So that's where you have an opportunity to have somebody from the community or maybe a teacher of yours or somebody that you've impacted with your art form, either as an individual artist or as an organization, who can who can either write a letter supporting your organization or you as an artist and telling why your work is important, how they've been impacted by your work. So they can do that through a written letter, or they can actually send in a video. So they can basically just record themselves for 2 minutes and tell that story of why your work is important to them. So these are the really key things that the reviewers are looking at. The first one is tradition and community connection. So we want to know, what is the traditional art form that you are focusing on for this project? How do you define it? How is it practiced in community? Where is this art form from? Give us all that context so that we understand the art form. We try to bring in cultural experts to review these applications who really understand lots of different art forms deeply. But you're going to be, the real expert in telling us what that art form is. So don't assume that the folks reading will know all about it. Really kind of assume that they don't and tell us what it is, then tell us how it's practiced in community so that we can really understand what it looks like in community, why it's meaningful in a community. The second part is really going to be about showing who the artists are. What are their skills and what are their experience? So, being able to say who they learned from, since we know in a lot of traditional art forms, there is a real understanding of a passing down of knowledge. So we want to learn, how they learned, and also what they've accomplished as artists. Why are they artists that you want to work with in this project? Or you as an artist who are applying, what have you accomplished that you think has been impactful in your community that shows your skills as a traditional artist? And then you're going to be able to also talk about just tell us in more detail what you want to do, when you want to do it, and what is that impact you see or you want to see? And how are you going to know if you accomplish that? So for instance, if my goal is to lead 10 workshops at my local library, focused on my traditional music, I'm going to know I'm successful when, I have at least, I don't know, 5 to 10 kids that come to every single workshop, or I am able to hear from the kids that they really liked it, or I'm able to see that they're really enjoying it, or a couple of the kids are able to, you know, share with me what they learned. So you get to tell us how you're thinking about success for yourself and for your organization, and then just tell us what does that look like. And then lastly, the this question around urgency. So we want to know why you think it's important to fund or give resources, money towards this work right now. This could be related to endangered art forms, marginalized art forms, maybe culture bearers who are getting up there in age, who, where it's pretty urgent for them to pass down that knowledge. It could be something related to your particular community and particular issues that your community is facing and how the practice of this traditional art form or being able to put on this festival will be able to support the community in a particular way. So you described to us why you think you know your work should be supported now. Lastly, just to go over, this is how the decisions are made. So, like I mentioned, we have a pretty impressive network of folks who review these applications. So it's definitely people that we know have direct experience in a lot of the traditional art forms that we also see people are applying for. These include teachers, experts, scholars, writers, artists, for sure. We also bring in folks who have received the grant in the past. So really folks who have that experience and knowledge. They actually read the applications and then they discuss them and then they make recommendations. After they make recommendations, our board of directors then makes the final decision. So they look at those recommendations, they make sure they think that it fits within our mission and our work, and they approve those recommendations. And then we're able to notify everybody in August. That's our current timeline to let everyone know, both those who receive the funding and those who don't. We'll let you know of those decisions then. Um, so we've gone over the deadline. Like I said, if we have time at the end, we're going to go into the submittable platform so that you can see how it looks and also just ask any questions. But with that, let me pass it over to Aaliyah to help with
Yeah.
with the questions. Mhm.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of them. So I'm going to start at the top. I let people know that I've been recording them. We're going to run down the list. Let me see if there's any new ones. Okay, there's one other. And then, yeah, so let's start with, you already addressed how many applications are approved. Budget, quote unquote, will be defined as income or expenses in the Living Cultures application.
I'm sorry, Aaliyah, let me take one moment to make sure that Anissa is on the screen. Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah. We have a question about budget. Will that be defined as income or expenses?
That would be defined as income.
The next question is, how do you want the budget history of the past 3 years shown or verified?
Yeah, so I think I addressed that a bit before, but basically you're reporting to us what that amount is, and we're just giving you some instructions about how you can find an average if you are looking at least 3 years of history.
Mhm.
You're basically adding those and dividing by 3 to find an average.
We had a question about what does 3 years of programming mean?
And so that was a correction that I wanted to make because the really what we're looking for is with organizations that have that 3 years of history that you average your income. But for organizations who have less, you don't actually have to verify 3 years of programming. You will have an opportunity in your work samples to show the work that you've done and why it's been meaningful. But you don't actually have to verify, 3 years of programming. So we understand with some newer organizations, you may or may not have that. And then what you're really showing also is, who are the artists that you're working with and what is their experience, and making sure that we can see that both in the your responses and also in your work samples.
Thank you. Um, is there anything for returning grantees that they should emphasize or consider in applying again?
Well, you'll have a new set of panelists. So you won't necessarily have the same people who reviewed your application, either, in 24, which is the last cycle that we did, or even in 23. So even if you are wanting to propose something similar or even the same that you did, a few years ago, that's not an issue. And then, like I said, it's more just making sure that you've shared with us what you accomplished with the previous grant so that we were able to document that and also share it to our funders. But let me know if there's a follow-up to that because I don't know if that captured your question.
Um, an average sense of how many hours the Living Cultures application takes to complete.
That's a great question. So we have, um, I believe it's about uh, 1,000 words total between all the questions where you're just describing what you're going to do, describing the artist, describing any urgency related to the project. That's about 1,000 words. And then the work samples are, around five photos for material arts, for art, visual arts, crafts, and 1 to 2, or actually 2 videos or audio recordings for um, performance-based work. So I guess what I'm trying to describe to you is I don't have a number, but just to give you a sense of the amount of information that you're compiling. For the word limits that we have, it's not necessarily that you have to use every single word. But as long as you feel like you're addressing the criteria, you can, use the words that you need. And we've tried to make it simple. So yeah, I don't wanna sort of just give a wild estimate because I think it will vary quite a bit based on who's applying, but hopefully that gives you a sense of what is the material that you have to bring together.
Okay, next question. Can this grant be used for annual recital performances that they charge ticket for, but is not able to cover all their expenses?
Annual recital performances that they charge tickets for, but um, oh, yeah. So, as I mentioned, you can, uh, within your proposed project, it can be a series of events that you also charge tickets, for. I think that's basically the question, which is yes, it's allowed. You're able to charge tickets for events that are part of your proposed project. It was um, just that we can't fund a project that where the main purpose of the project is fundraising for the organization.
Um, can this grant be used? Let's see. Do you have any recommendations for ineligible organizations supporting eligible individuals in applying for projects on which we could collaborate? So maybe large organizations that want to be a fiscal sponsor, I think is the question.
Um, yeah, so the question is kind of like if you want to collaborate with an organization that's not eligible, what would be a way to do that? Is that
I believe
kind
so.
of um I mean, yeah, so I think there could be if you do have a fiscal sponsor that's a larger organization, yes, that's a way to partner with an organization that's larger, that's beyond the 500K budget size. Um, I'm trying to think if there are other, and as a smaller organization, I mean, you do have the freedom to partner with whoever you want to partner with. It's really just that the applying organization fit within the requirements. But in terms of, who you partner and collaborate with, there's more freedom around that.
We don't do matching, if that's what you're asking too. Like we don't have a list of organizations that we can supply or artists looking for sponsors or collaborative partners. Our next question is this one's specific to their organization. Karma is the fiscal sponsor of one project that wants to apply. Can another one of our fiscal sponsor projects also apply?
If the question is, can one organization serve as a fiscal sponsor for multiple applicant organizations? Yes. One organization can serve as a fiscal sponsor to multiple organizations that are applying.
Yes. Can we submit an average budget for the last 10 years if we haven't had grants in the last few years?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay.
The idea is that you're just giving us an average of your work as an organization. So if you haven't received grants in the last few years, it's okay if you give us what that average is. Like if the last 3 years the average is closer to zero, that's okay. It's basically the question is around, you being eligible within under the 500K.
And then let's see, last question that doesn't pertain to apprenticeship is, can we download the transcript of this meeting at the end?
I will actually be able to share a transcript. I'm not sure how you would download the transcript, but if you want to try and we just need to grant you permission, that would be fine as well. But my plan is also to make a transcript available.
Okay. Let's see, we have one more. Um, just need clarity. What are ways to prove my activity as an individual over the last 5 years? What do you accept other than actual recordings? Video testimony? Question mark.
So basically, in some ways, like our eligibility questions are very much like an honor system. So we're going to ask you, have you been practicing for at least 5 years? And you'll be able to say yes or no. And then in terms of our criteria, where the panelists are looking at your skills and artists and your experience, that's where you'll have an opportunity to certainly describe it in the written questions. But your work samples will be key in demonstrating that you have that experience. So those are the ways that you can actually show us that you have at least that experience. But in terms of um, just getting through the first eligibility questions, you're basically gonna just confirm with us that you have at least 5 years.
Yeah, that's it for our questions in the chat. Oh, wait, one just popped in. 1 second. Here they come. Hold on. Can this grant be used to complete the writing and workshop stage readings of an original play?
Well, I think it will be about So when we think about theater, um, you'll have to define for us why you're defining um, the theater that you're doing as a traditional art form. So you'll have to tell us about what is that community context that it's been in, how is that knowledge being passed down? How is there like a shared sort of understanding of the beauty and value of that art form? So basically, be able to contextualize for us how you see your art form as a traditional art, and then um, and then within that, like what you're describing related to work, writing and workshop could be something that's part of your project.
Um, can we review what is defined as traditional art forms?
Sure. So when we think about traditional art forms, we're thinking about those art forms that are part of sort of the living cultural practice of a community. And we see those art forms as developing through communities that have a shared cultural heritage. It could be around a shared language, around a shared region, even in some cases a shared like area of work, for instance, like agricultural work and the making of like leather belts for cowboys or something like that. But that's also, there's also strong connections within cultural heritage. So those are some of the ways that people develop traditional arts within their community through those shared experiences, again, with language, heritage, region. And then we also see in traditional art forms that there's often, because the community context, the practice in community is really crucial to the traditional art form. We often see that there's more of a collective kind of understanding of what beauty is, what kind of how that art form is defined in community, as opposed to one individual artist sort of just deciding, what the art form is or, why it's valuable. There's more of a collective process in developing that together and understanding that together and valuing that together. So those are some of the ways that we kind of think about traditional arts. Aaliyah, do you want to add anything to that?
Just say that it also helps sometimes to see who our previous grantees have been. That kind of gives the idea of the scope. Living Cultures, this will be its 20th cycle, so there's quite a few grantees to look for, to look through to get an idea of what we funded. That doesn't mean we funded everything. But the traditional arts, we'll also go over what that means of like traditional arts and what traditionality means in the next presentation. So maybe we can address it there as well.
That sounds good. And I think because we're running short on time, I think we should move on to the apprenticeship program. And what I'll do is I'm going to also download, I'm going to try to respond to your questions in the chat while Aaliyah is presenting. And then I will also download, uh, well, we're actually going to share a way for you to ask us more questions and meet with us if you want. So we can also follow up with any questions we don't get to through a phone call or a meeting.
Yeah. So
Um,
Betty, we after your comment, CAC and Hewlett, these are the new questions if you want to address those in the chat.
yeah, okay, sounds good. Do you want me to share a screen or would you
Um,
like to?
no, I can see. All right. I'm gonna kick you off, okay?
Oh, I didn't even realize I was still.
All right, where are we? Okay. Okay. Slideshow. Can everyone see the slideshow? Yes,
It's loading.
it's loading. Okay. Let's try it this way. Sometimes it's easier just to share it the way I see it.
Yes, we can see it.
You can see it. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about the apprenticeship program. I had quite a few questions also in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and do this presentation and then I'll be able to answer those questions more directly. The apprenticeship program for 2026. What is the apprenticeship program? If you haven't applied before, how ACTA looks at the apprenticeship program is having a one-on-one intensive learning experience between a mentor apprentice, a mentor artist, and apprentice. It is a self-designed curriculum, and you have a minimum of 6 months together or up to a year for this program. And it includes ACTA staff to come and do a site visit, and also offering a community-based public presentation towards the end of your work together. And also will entail the completion of several evaluation forms. So the apprenticeship program varies from the living cultures in that it's not a grant. This is a contract with the mentor artist to teach the apprentice. Who can apply? For us, both participants, like living cultures, must be based in California. The mentor artist must be authorized to work in the United States and be able to receive payments directly. There is no way around this. So for folks, this will be taxable income. So again, this is a contractual program that is supporting activities for the 2026 cycle that would start in July 1st, and run through June 30th of 2027. Just like Living Cultures, the applications will be due by April 27th. Applications are available in English and Spanish currently. Some examples of our apprenticeship program. I just picked a couple just to give you an idea. Here we have a mentor artist in the Iranian music tradition teaching their apprentice on tombak from our 2023 cycle. Here we have two more musicians in mariachi trumpet from Los Angeles. We have, I believe, did you already? Oh no, this is Moisi. We have Madhu Diouf and his apprentice Ababakar in Senegalese drumming. We also have a lot of craft, like basket weaving, and we have tattoo, traditional tattoo arts. We have a lot of different things. You can also, like Living Cultures, look at our previous grantees on the apprenticeship page. It's kind of listed at the bottom where you can see looking at previous year cycles by the year. The application itself, one, you have to be eligible, and we consider a mentor artist someone who's recognized in their community as an exemplary practitioner of a traditional art form. And the apprentice should already have demonstrated an intention to enhance an established skill. So this is not going to be a beginner who isn't already steeped in this tradition, but they are at an emerging stage and is looking to learn more from their mentor. They don't have to have worked with that mentor before. Sometimes this program is an opportunity to elicit that new relationship, and it can also be to further develop one that has already been established and to continue it. This application is interesting because it is a joint application. You actually fill out this application together. Now, that recognizing that we had a question in the chat, it often is on one person, often on the younger, I've noticed, of the of the pairs, who may be more technically savvy, but we will need the input from both the mentor and the apprentice to fill out the application. And to be able to do this, you would select the collaboration function in Submittable. It's a little hidden, but right when you open the application, it should be up on the right-hand side, and you just enable collaboration, which means that you would enter the person you want to collaborate with, who would have access to that application in its editable form with just entering their email. But I want to say that the person who opens that application as this will be considered the submitter, and that will be the person who will be messaged, whether they are awarded this contract or not. And any communications will be with the submitter, not the collaborator. Only one application is allowed per mentor in any one cycle. The application must include work samples from both mentor artist and the apprentice. Also, statements of support. We also have videos, so it can be a letter or a video, are required for both the mentor artist and the apprentice. They cannot be for each other. The application for craft artists or material and visual arts would include minimum of 8 and a maximum of 12 images from both the mentor and the apprentice. Each artist may also submit a video sample. For performing artists, so musicians and dancers and others, you can have audio files or video samples. Dance must submit a video. 2 from each mentor and apprentice. And now we allow up to 5 images for performing artists to also submit. We also have ritual arts and foodways in our applications, and we really just allow you to make that decision. How would you like to apply depending on the work samples that you have to work with? So you can choose either craft or performing arts and then follow the work samples needed for those. Okay, here we're back at traditionality. So traditionality of an art form. What does that mean? So traditionality, the way that I understand it, the way that it has been, practiced in ACTA is are arts that are transmitted and engaged as part of the cultural life of a group of people whose members share a common heritage, language, religion, occupation, or region. So traditionality in that sense would be expressed, will be expressing these values in that art form. So if you have any further questions about that, that's kind of how we've defined it most simply, but you can always ask us or come into our office hours and discuss your specific art form, and we can kind of unpack it with you. So another set of criteria for the apprenticeship program is shared membership. We ask you what that looks like in your pairing. The artistic quality of the mentor artist's work, as demonstrated by how their peers receive their work. I have some other notes I'd like to read about that. So it's really important that, in ACTA and the way that we look at these applications is we're not looking at what we think is excellent. We are looking at what your community believes is excellent. And that's how we look at it. We're also looking for demonstrated commitment and developed skill of the apprentice. So similarly to living cultures, we're not looking for someone who's brand new to the practice, right? We're looking for someone who has already established skills and, more importantly, a cultural understanding of the art form prior to applying. And the next one is feasibility of the proposed plan that's in in the application. That would include your budget, your like what you're interested in covering, and how long and what that's going to look like for you. So your timetable, is it is it too large of a project? Is it too limited? Really give us a sense of what that would look like for your pairing over the time scale that you are interested in applying for, from 6 months to a year. Similarly to living cultures, urgency is a lens which our panel looks through as a very important piece of criteria. Urgency can mean different things to different people, but the way that we like to think of urgency is articulating urgency of an art form, right? This can be really specific to each form or each culture or each time, but it may relate to endangered or marginalized expressions, languages, possibly the age of the culture bearer or mentor, or the timeliness related to maybe a social or political context of what's happening in your community. Okay. In the application, you will have to fill out a budget. It's calculated for you. Please forgive this slide, actually. Do not include, you're in the know here by coming to this info session, don't include any dollar signs, please. I'll have to correct this because it won't add up for you at the end here. But we do have it so that you can fill in these numbers and it'll do the math for you. It needs to equal 5,000. And that's it. This is where you would find the application on our website. And here again are the contacts for myself and Betty. So for the apprenticeship program, Betty is very kind. And if anyone would be interested or need to apply in Spanish or would like any support in Spanish, like office hours, Betty is who you would contact. And her information is down here, grants@ACTA or .org, and then mine is aaliyah@actaonline.org. So I steward the apprenticeship program. So, do we have any questions in the chat, Betty?
Yes. There was a few people who asked if you can apply for both the apprenticeship and the Living Cultures grant, and I responded yes.
Yes, you can apply simultaneously for those.
And there's another question that I think it's related. Well, I'm just going to read it and we'll sort out which program. It says if two organizations or individuals apply for the same program and both applications are really good, how does the panel decide who gets approved? Okay, so I see you started to reply to that one. Okay, so so this is for living culture, so maybe I'll hold on that for now. And the question from Passion, are these only for individual artists or also groups, teams? I think this is related, Passion, your question's related to apprenticeship program, correct?
Yes, the apprenticeship program is one-on-one intensive. So not one person to a group or a group to a group. It is a one-to-one.
Okay. And then you said, Aaliyah, that you had questions
Yeah,
earlier in the chat about apprenticeship. So I
yeah, I
haven't
saw a
spoken.
question. Is the mentor artist or apprentice that needs to be practicing for more than 5 years? I believe that 5-year mark was identified for living cultures. Is that right, Betty?
Yes.
Yeah. The mentor and apprentice, we don't have a number on it. It would be from your narrative, your responses in your application and your work samples and explaining kind of the background of your practice. So it can vary. Let's see. The statements of support for a mentor artist. I understand, yes, the mentor artist in their community may be the one who normally gives statements of support for other practitioners. In this case, it could be a mentor artist would receive a statement of support from someone in their community, aligned practitioners, or even students. Sometimes we have youth that are applying, and someone in their family or community or teachers would be supporting. Maybe they've been witnessing the mentor artist working with that apprentice already, and they can offer a letter of support in that way. Can a family member help the mentor complete the application? So earlier on when I said collaboration is enabled in this submittable application, yes. So yes, you can have a family member or really anyone help you with the application. And then, I would recommend letting me know if there's some issue where you feel like you're writing for the person. We really do want these applications in the thoughts and words of the people that are applying. So staying as close to working with that person and not just assuming what they want to say would be the most authentic application. And it really does reveal itself when we review the applications, whether that's true or not.
I have a question whenever you're ready, Leah.
Yep, I'm ready.
It says, does the project share presentation need to be completed by June 30th, 2027, or can the training mentorship take place by that date for the most part?
No, we do ask for this program. It is this contract would close on June 30th, 2027, and all your public showing and the evaluations that follow the public showing would need to be turned in by that date to receive the final payment. And that's because this program, as a grant, it's not a grant, it's a contract. So there are these three pillars of the program, right? So the original, you receive half of the contract up front once you've done an orientation. And then after a site visit, you would receive another payment. And then after your public showing, and we receive the evaluations that are tied to that public showing and reflection forms are received, you would receive the final payment. So it's throughout the time. So some folks want to do it in 6 months because they want to receive the full 5,000 in 6 months. Others take the full year to receive those payments.
I don't see other print. I do see another, well, yeah, I think it's another Living Cultures. I have a question from Raul Cardona. Is this related to apprenticeship, Raul, or to Living Cultures? Both. So what does the disbursement schedule look like? So for Living Cultures, if you're awarded the grant, we actually send that in full right away. So you have to fill out a contract and submit some payment forms. So once you do that, you receive the grant in full as an individual artist or as an organization. And if you have a fiscal sponsor, we send it to the fiscal sponsor. Aaliyah, do you want to speak to the apprenticeship disbursement?
Yeah, so again, it's in three parts for the apprenticeship program. The first half, so that would be 2,500, would be paid upon an orientation with myself. Often happens in small groups of the awardees. And then after a minimum of 3 months, a site visit can ensue. And after that would be the second payment of 1,500. And then before the end of the program's timeline, the remaining 1,000 would be dispersed.
And Alexandria, I hope that answered your question. Um, there was uh, Alexandria is asking, are we then to the 1099 that amount?
Yes, you would receive tax forms. The mentor artist would receive tax forms from ACTA.
And for living cultures, it would be the same uh, for yeah, yeah, for both organization and individual artists, you would receive a tax form the following year, at the beginning of the following year.
Mhm. Yeah, we've had some questions in the past and have come up against because a lot of our mentors are elders, um, we're not able to defer the payment to someone other than the mentor artist. And we know that a payment of 5,000 over of one fiscal year can disrupt maybe if they're on any kind of social security or something like that. Unfortunately, is not something that's negotiable. We can't change that. They have to be able to accept that 5,000.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to, so I think Nikisha's question about earlier was stated that you can only process one application for each program. So I'm trying to get an understanding of what happens if two different groups apply. For example, let's say a folk dance workshop, and they both have great applications. How do you determine who gets approved? So so just to clarify a few things, um, you can apply like as an individual artist, you can apply to both Living Cultures and to the apprenticeship program. And I think your question, Nikisha, it was related to the uh, the guideline around not being able to have two separate proposals for the same project. So that's the case. So let's say there's a festival, let's just say it's I don't know, some kind of folk dance festival that's happening, in Los Angeles, and two different artists are applying to perform at the same folk dance festival, or to organize that same folk. That's where we would have an issue. But if you're both just organizing your own set of folk dance workshops, and they happen to be the same traditional art form, those would be evaluated in the same way using those same criteria that we reviewed. So it wouldn't be that, oh, because it's the same art form, we can't fund. No, it's more about when it's the exact same project that's being applied to twice. But if it's the same art form, that's not an issue. Okay, thank you. And then one other, I think this will be our last question, from Nirupama. Hello, how do we justify urgency for work done by an organization? Will the nature of the subject matter's uniqueness or the fact that it has not been done before constitute urgency? Yeah, I think so urgency can be defined in different ways. And so that's why we're asking you to tell us, like, why is this important to receive this funding to support this work right now? And, we have seen urgency related to supporting art forms that are less visible or have received less support. So your suggestion around the subject matter, if it's something urgent related to a particular community, that could be something that comes into how, how the urgency is understood. So it really varies. It could be directly related to the artist, directly related to the community, the art form. It can be defined in these different ways. Hopefully that helps for now. We've shared in the chat the links to talk to us if you have further questions. We really appreciate you all hanging out with us, and also being patient with us. And I'm going to pass it to Aaliyah to just share a few other ways to stay connected.
Yeah. I feel like you can't see my screen again. I just shared other ways to stay connected. Can you see it? Or is it still
We can
loading?
see it. We can see it. Oh, wait.
Oh,
It-
there it is.
I can share it here.
There you go.
Actually,
I got it?
sorry, I just had to switch.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you got it. You got it. It's on there.
Okay. So yes, other ways you can stay in touch with us, other than, emailing us directly or giving us a phone call. Um, you're welcome to do that as well. But the best way to find dates and events for ACTA is to subscribe to our once a month newsletter. We not only do we let you know about funding opportunities through ACTA, but we also try and assemble every month funding opportunities and exciting projects around the state that you folks might be interested in our newsletter. Um, you can follow us as another way to find out about this information, maybe not as thorough as our newsletter would be, but on, of course, Instagram, Facebook, and we don't call it Twitter anymore, do we? X at CalTradArts. That is our handle for all three of these social media platforms. We also have a fabulous thing called the California Traditional Artist Plaza. And you can check out this link. It's on our website at the top banner for looking for artists and organizations. And you can, even if you aren't a grantee or a recipient of ACTA funding, you can essentially add your information as a traditional artist, and we will create somewhat of a profile for you in which people outside of ACTA publicly can search our website and find out about you and your practice, and you can be very specific about what you offer, whether it's vocal lessons or dance performance or lectures or workshops, and you can post your social handles, email, and phone number, or however you'd like to share your information on that plaza. So it's a really wonderful way to have some visibility. We're often contacted. Um, People maybe don't know who we are and want to book someone that they see on our website, because we create artist profiles for all of our grantees and program participants. But we don't do that. So we've created this so that we can pass along the interests of others in working with you all.
And with that, I think we're going to close. Thank you, everyone. Look out for the recording. Feel free to reach out with us with questions. And thank you to our great interpreter team. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.